Welcome to another Hannah's modern-day parable called, I Can't Please You All. To what can I compare this generation? They are like children sitting in the marketplaces and calling out to others. Matthew chapter 11 verse 16. Mrs. Thompson was fresh out of university and was the kind of teacher every child hoped to have. She was passionate about nurturing inquisitive minds. She encouraged her pupils to never stop asking questions. She firmly believed that if learning was fun, energetic, and immersive, children would gain far more from each lesson than simply memorizing facts. To Mrs. Thompson, education was to be experienced, not merely memorized. History wasn't simply about remembering dates and textbooks. It was about understanding the people, cultures, and events that had shaped our present and continue to influence generations. She wanted her pupils to step into history, to experience different cultures, to understand the choices people had made, and to imagine what life must have been like for those who had lived through those extraordinary moments. So, every lesson became an adventure. One week, her classroom became ancient Egypt. The next, it was transformed into a medieval castle. For their World War II topic, the classroom was filled with replica artifacts, ration books, old newspapers, maps, and authentic wartime sound effects. Mrs. Thompson arrived dressed in period costume and had encouraged every child to become someone living during that era. The classroom came alive. Children who rarely spoke suddenly found their voices. Those who usually struggled to concentrate became completely absorbed. Eyes widened as excited whispers of, "Wow!" and "cool" echoed around the room. Pupils who had once dreaded history lessons now rushed through the classroom door each morning, eager to discover where Mrs. Thompson would transport them next. History was no longer a subject. It had become an experience. Soon, parents began hearing conversations around their dinner tables that they had never heard before. Children excitedly spoke about ancient civilizations, famous battles, remarkable inventions, and courageous men and women who had changed the course of history. Many parents praised Mrs. Thompson's creativity, but not all of them was impressed. One afternoon, while waiting at the school gates, a parent sighed loudly. "I'm tired of having to make or order these costumes online. It's getting beyond a joke." Another parent nodded in agreement. "Not to mention how expensive it is." A third folded her arms. "I think she's doing far too much. Why can't she just teach from the textbook like everyone else?" Another parent shrugged. "School isn't supposed to be entertainment. I guess it's because she's young and inexperienced. Like, she only qualified last year." Before long, the conversations at the school gates found their way into the staff room. The complaints spread quickly. Some teachers quietly admired Mrs. Thompson's creativity, but chose not to defend her. Others, however, became envious of her innovative approach. Rather than celebrating the children's enthusiasm, they quietly fueled the parents' frustrations. "She's only doing it for attention," one teacher remarked as she stirred her tea. "And if you ask me," another replied with a smirk, "she's making the rest of us look bad. This isn't proper teaching. It's more like theater." The comments became more frequent, more personal, more hurtful. Some were made in front of colleagues, some in front of visiting guests, some even within earshot of the children. No matter what Mrs. Thompson did, someone found fault. If her lessons were exciting, she was trying too hard. If she simplified them, she wasn't doing enough. If the children laughed, she lacked classroom discipline. If they worked quietly, she clearly wasn't engaging them. Nothing ever seemed good enough. Week after week, the criticism continued. Slowly, the joy that had once filled Mrs. Thompson's classroom began to disappear beneath the weight of other people's opinions. Then one afternoon, after yet another meeting where her teaching methods were questioned, she quietly returned to her classroom. One by one, she packed away the costumes, the Romans' helmets, the pharaoh's crown, the medieval shields, the wartime artifacts, the maps, the props, everything that had helped history come alive. As she looked around the room, she noticed the disappointed expressions on her pupils' faces. She took a deep breath. Months of criticism had become too much to carry. With tears filling her eyes, she turned towards her colleagues and said, "I can't please you all." The room fell silent. She wiped away a tear and continued, "I just thought that if one child walked away having learned something new, if one child discovered a love for history, if one child believed they were capable of learning because I dared to teach differently, then my methods would have achieved exactly what I set out to do." She paused. Her voice softened. "My purpose has never been to entertain." Another pause. "It has always been to empower, inspire and encourage children to learn." Not one adult spoke. Then, a small hand slowly rose from the back of the classroom. "Miss." Mrs. Thompson looked over and smiled through her tears. "Yes." The little boy hesitated before speaking. "I used to hate history." He glanced around at his classmates. Now, a smile spread across his face. "I think it's my favorite subject." Before Mrs. Thompson could reply, voices began filling the classroom. "Yeah, me too. I love history now. I can't wait to see what we're learning next." Mrs. Thompson looked around the room. For the first time in months, she stopped listening to the voices of her critics and started listening to the voices that mattered most. She realized she had been measuring her success by those who were determined to misunderstand her, instead of by the lives she was changing. A smile slowly returned to her face. She closed the storage cupboard, turned back towards the class and said with renewed confidence, "Right then, who's ready to meet the tutors?" The classroom erupted. "Me!" The cheers echoed down the corridor. And at that moment, Mrs. Thompson realized something that no amount of criticism could ever take away. Wisdom had already been proved right, not by the opinions of her critics, but by the lives she had inspired. So Hannah's reflection is this: Mrs. Thompson believed that if children experienced history instead of simply reading about it, they would never forget it. Some parents loved her approach. Some teachers admired her creativity, but others found fault with everything she did. If she made learning exciting, she was accused of doing too much. If she had simply stood at the front of the classroom reading from a textbook, those same voices would probably have complained that her lessons were uninspiring. No matter what Mrs. Thompson did, someone was determined not to be pleased. That is exactly what Jesus was exposing in the parable of the children in the marketplace. Jesus compared his generation to children sitting in the marketplace who called out to one another, "We played the pipe for you, and you did not dance. We sang a dirge, and you did not mourn." Taken from the book of Matthew chapter 11, verses 16 to 17. The children in Jesus' story refused to join in, regardless of the game being played. When joyful music was played, they refused to dance. When funeral songs were sung, they refused to mourn. It wasn't that the music was wrong. It wasn't that the game was wrong. The problem was that they had already decided they would not participate. Likewise, Mrs. Thompson's critics had already made up their minds. Her costumes weren't really the issue. Her props weren't the issue. Her immersive teaching wasn't the issue. If she had removed every costume, every artifact, and every creative lesson, they would simply have found something else to criticize. Their dissatisfaction revealed more about their hearts than it did about her teaching. Jesus said his generation behaved in exactly the same way. John the Baptist came living a life of fasting, discipline, and self-denial. People said, "He has a demon." Then Jesus came eating with ordinary people, celebrating with them, extending grace and offering hope. The very same people said, "Here is a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners." John's approach was rejected. Jesus' approach was rejected, not because either was wrong, but because many had already decided they would reject God's message, whatever form it came in. And discovered the same truth. Some people will always find fault, not because your calling lacks value, but because their hearts have already chosen criticism over appreciation. Jesus wasn't teaching us how to become people pleasers. He was teaching us how to remain faithful. Mrs. Thompson thought her success depended upon winning over every parent and every colleague. Jesus reminds us that faithfulness has never been measured by universal approval. It has always been measured by the fruit our lives produce. And that was the lesson Mrs. Thompson learned when she finally stopped listening to the loudest voices and started listening to the children whose lives had been changed. That is why Jesus ends this passage by saying, "But wisdom is proved right by her deeds," from the book of Matthew chapter 11 verse 19. The evidence of wisdom is not found in the opinions of critics. It is found in the lives that are transformed because someone remained faithful to what God had called them to do. The question Jesus leaves us with is not, "Can I make everyone happy?" The question is, will I remain faithful even when I can't please everyone? Because there will always be voices that refuse to dance. There will always be voices that refuse to mourn. But don't let those voices stop you from doing what God has called you to do. So finally, Hannah asks, have you been changing who you are just to gain the approval of others? Are you allowing criticism to silence the gifts God has placed within you? Are you more concerned with people's opinions than God's purpose for your life? Whose voice carries more weight in your life, your critics or Christ? Has God called you to do something differently, but fear of criticism has stopped you from stepping out in faith? Are you measuring success by applause or by the lives you are helping to change? So now in closing, may the Lord bless and keep you. May He cause His face to shine up on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn His face towards you and give you peace. Closing blessing taken from the book of Numbers, chapter 6 verses 24 to 26. Shalom.
Thank you for watching Hannah's modern day parable called I Can't Please You All, brought to you by Broken Glass Productions. Created and written by Hannah.